Jordan, just the good and bad from Saturday. What'd you like? What didn't you like?
Well, I mean, we obviously didn't start well. Weren't ready to go. That's 100% on me. Knew we were going to get some formations and some plays that were probably new that we haven't seen. The issue was, the tempo of it. Once that gets going downhill, you have to adjust on the run. And when things are moving that fast, with a couple of guys that are still pretty new, some of them in the secondary, then you have to get things slowed down, which actually we did on the first drive. But before, I was happy that we made them kick a field goal. I knew we were going to be adjusting as we go. I didn't know they were going to go that fast, but I mean, it is what it is. And then after that, it was what really got us was the blown coverages. That was the negative, the communication issues, and that tempo going downhill so fast was missed tackles. That was the biggest disappointment for me, and we worked that a lot. And so some guys did some things I haven't seen in fall camp. Don't know where it come from, but it is what it is, and it was there. So the positives is we got it stopped, we got adjusted, we calmed down. Second and third quarter, thought we played pretty good. Had some new guys that stepped into some roles and played really well. So that was good to see, and we got to continue to improve on that.
So this week, personnel changes in terms of what you saw on film, or just play better with what you got?
Play better with what we got. The guys. I told them the same thing after the game. Is that I don't feel any different about that group of guys. I've been excited about this group. Still excited about this group. I think it was it's got to be a learning experience. Got to be a humbling experience. We're not the group from last year, and to think that we are is, guys, we're wrong. We're not. We have to be who we are. And but those guys that you saw early on with those mistakes, they'll be better. We'll be better as a whole.
How'd you feel about the way some of your young defensive linemen played?
I was really happy. It was really good to see Jordan Jefferson running around, and just playing the fundamentals of playing defensive line for him and playing fast. That was the biggest thing, playing fast. And then Sean Martin. Sean Martin's the guy that showed up. That was good to see. I was happy with that.
You mentioned Mesidor. What did he do specifically that was so impressive on Saturday?
Well, I mean, the first play of the game. If he don't make the tackle on a bubble screen to the field away from him and he's the nose guard, it probably scores. And you don't have to look any further than that play. Show me another nose guard that's going to make that play.
So the effort plays were there all game?
They were there all game. They were there all game. And we got to get, 10, 12, 13, 20, 21 other guys playing the way that guy does.
You flip Dante and Akeem sometimes, nose and D tackle. Is that something you're just going to do and rotate it, or are you just still looking to see which works better where?
A little bit of both. The techniques are very similar. The issues that it creates for an offense will be depending on week to week how we want to use them in the packages that we want to use them in certain ways. It's I said this last year when we started moving Darius around. It's pretty much the same position. We slide those guys back and forth depending on a lot of things. So it looks like a position change on paper, but it's really the same position.
Coach Brown mentioned some of the communication issues that caused some big plays to get out. Was it more communication between sidelines of players or in play, diagnosing things? Where were the majority of those problems?
There was one of each on the two big plays you're talking about. One was player to player. The other one was a signal issue. There's a transition there between special teams, which are a lot of defensive players, and defense. And there was a communication issue on the signal, and that led to end up leading to 3 points. I was just happy at that point that we forced 3 points right there before halftime. But those are things we'll get fixed.
Is that something that is going to happen in every game, though, and sometimes you just don't get burned by them because play went the other way or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want them to. I think it's something that's going to happen on the road more than it happens, at home. And I think that's one of the things that obviously there's no excuse for. But I mean, it's just things you have to over communicate on defense. And when people attack you the way that people attack us, and just offense in general now, where you're getting the same plays in a lot of different formations, same looks, same sets of plays with RPOs, you have to over communicate. And we've harped that with our guys from the jump, and we've done a pretty good job of it through fall camp. And there was just a lot of things that showed up that hadn't showed up, but they did, and we got to fix them.
Taj is a guy that's been in the program, it seems like forever, but this was only his 4th game. So first, how did he play, in your opinion, and how has this journey been finally getting him back on the field?
So who was it? Say it again.
Taj Austin.
Oh, the one thing about Taj is if I pick a guy behind Messidor with his effort, was Taj Austin. Taj plays hard. There's things that me being an old junior college coach, that his transition has really never had the chance to start. This is his first off season, so if you watch him play, there's still a lot of things that he fundamentally playing a 5 technique at this level that he still has to work on. But what he makes up for is how hard he plays, and to a point of reckless sometimes, which is fine at that position. And that's a guy that you'll see as the season goes on. Like you said, he's only played in 4 games, and the speed of that starts to slow down as he starts to stack games. He'll be a lot better. He'll be a guy that continues to take steps as the season goes on.
Tough first game for your young corner. Is that a building block for him now? This is something to say, hey, this is what you got to work on. This is what you got 2 great guys at Maryland, and build off that.
I mean, I don't think you have to tell him. I think you can see it, and that's a natural learning progression, especially at that position. I always said, I think any coach says, it's not just myself or Shadon or anybody, like, you have to have a short memory, and DP does too. He got to learn from it, because those are not going to be the last good receivers he plays in his college career. So. One was a fundamental issue. One was one of those communication issues, and to think that any of these guys, and I said this, I believe, in the first press conference, that any of these guys that are COVID freshmen, second-year guys, that's not a normal progression as a young player. They're still really young players, and they're going to make mistakes like that. What I have to do, we have to get them better. And if it's something that they have to learn and they continue to learn, I can't put them in that position. So that's on me. And so, but Daryl's going to be fine, and he will. He's going to be a guy that's going to come in. He's going to learn from that, and he's going to be better. And that's it's just like anything else. It's like, I put Sean Martin out there against a second-round draft pick offensive tackle. Well, he's going to be better in the long run because of that, and Daryl will too.
Can you help them by maybe disrupting the quarterback a little bit more? I guess that's got to be part of the formula, right?
Yeah, we've got to. It's one thing that I'm the outside of the tackling, which was more angles than actual tackling, that we didn't affect the quarterback more. And I think we kind of overthought some things. I think we kind of played a little slow, trying to do too much instead of just rushing the passer. And so that's disappointing. That was one of the things I was kind of disappointed in was that. And yes, we have to. And and then the first touchdown, that's a 8-man protection. I can't send 9. So it's one thing in certain scenario. The second scenario, yes, I should have. The first scenario, we got to find a way to affect him. And then kids got to do a better job fundamental. Whatever it is, there's all kinds of different scenarios. There's 2 totally different plays. The second one, you're correct. The first one was, how you gotta use your technique and make a play on the ball.
What are the biggest biggest steps, the biggest improvements that you've seen from Messidor from last season to this season?
Just the basic knowledge of the game, learning how to play certain blocks while still playing as reckless and as hard as he does. A lot of times you see guys that are a little bit not out of control, but they just play a reckless style of football. They get either behind an extra gap or ahead too far. He's really been able to just basic football knowledge. You still got to understand where he come from, and there's a lot of things that he did not learn in high school that a lot of American kids do learn. So playing catch up on that has been probably the biggest improvement, just basic things, understanding how to play certain blocks, how to attack certain protections, certain pass sets, and things like that.
Some of the things you had talked about with him, like the intensity and the effort, those are things as a coach, like, you really can't teach, right? I figure a guy just kind of comes in like that, and how as a coach do you try to harness
Yeah, it's one of two things. A guy comes in with and he plays the game that way. But a guy like that also can affect other guys. And so guys that maybe don't understand that's at the end of the day, that's the way the game should be played, can feed off of guys like him. So they can either have it or they can learn it and say, well, I want to do the same thing. I want to play the same way he is. So all you got to do is watch and see what the end result of that is. And Akeem's going to, he's going to be talked about a lot in his career. And I think he'll achieve some big things. And so that's the result of that. So if other guys see that, then they probably want to mimic that.
Progress of Sean Messidor over the last year from where he got a year ago when he first got here, not Messidor, I'm sorry, Sean Martin, to where he is now.
One thing I've said about Sean the whole time is functional strength. Sean's he's a big kid, and got a lot of body that his muscles are trying to play catch up as a second year player, and they will. And I think if you watch him, that's what you see more than anything. He's able to use his length, but now he has the strength to do that, and that'll continue to get better the older he gets. And so that's and really his improvement has been accelerated for whatever reason over the last 3 weeks, which has been fun to coach. It's been fun to watch, and so he's going to be fine.
I'm assuming this is a game Saturday where you're going to try to get a lot more guys in the game to evaluate them. Is that accurate?
Yes, I would hope so.
In the way, the schedule, you don't make the schedule, but if you had it flipped around, you'd rather have it the first game to be able to move it around, but kind of going a little backwards.
Yeah, you obviously can't control that.
Right.
And then I, the thing I take from it every time you open with a and I give credit to Maryland. Right. They outplayed us, they outcoached us, and they're a good offensive football team. Those two receivers are really good. Quarterback's much improved. Offensive line I thought was improved. So I give them the credit. But what for us and for me is now you know where you are, right? And there's all the mistakes and not being ready to go and those things. Hey, look, at the end of the day, we had a chance to get the ball back to our offense, to have a chance to drive and win the ball game. And when I look at it on paper, I'm like, how did we not lose this game by whatever? At the end of the day, we had a chance to get the ball back to the offense, and we didn't get it done. And so there's so many things to learn in there for this group, who I think probably went into it with a little bit of an inflated self-view. Well, now that's gone. So hey, that's okay. It's a humbling game. And we got to learn from it, move on.
You got a bunch of 50-50 games down the road, like last Saturday's game was. You're obviously going to get more guys ready to win those 50-50 games, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to. We talked about it in fall camp. Talked about quality depth. And I think that from Saturday it's a little misleading. and it's ultimately my fault. You know, what's hard is you take a couple of sudden changes to where in a normal situation, whether you punt, whether you score, whatever you do, right, you've got your set of guys that are about to rotate in, how you're going to rotate them. Well, guess what? Sudden change, what's on your mind as a coach is you're sitting there thinking, I got to stop the bleed. So who's going to go in the game? Your best players, right? So it you know, and then you don't realize it, and then after the game you're like, oh, you know. So anyway, that's something we have to fix, and I have to fix as coaches. And so yeah, we've got to use the depth we have, which I think is a lot of them are more ready than they show on paper. And so we got to get those guys in, got to get them ready. There's only one way to learn, and that's play, and we got to do that.
So what are you telling the COVID freshmen coming home for the first time to a full capacity push car?
That, you know, they've probably never been in an environment like this. And I think most of them are, they've talked about it all off season. You know, I haven't got to see this yet. So they're excited. I don't have to tell them much. They can see the pictures and the videos and do their research. Don't have to tell them much of anything. They're excited.
Okay, Coach, thank you.
Mm-hmm.